The following Nasdaq Behind the Bell podcast was recorded live at the 2017 NRF Annual Convention and Expo, retail's big show at the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center in New York City. Here are your Nasdaq hosts, Bradley Smith and Josh Matches.
Hey everybody, we are back from the NRF Innovation Lab. You're listening to the Nasdaq Behind the Bell podcast. You've got Brad Smith on the microphone here, and also next to me I've got
Josh Matches. Hello.
Hey, what's up everybody? So, we're kind of going to pick up on where we left off. You heard a very interesting conversation with Mark Matthews, who's the VP of Research at NRF previously. And we began to touch on Generation Z and their spending habits and how they're influencing spending as well. And so we're kind of going to pick up on that a little bit more with Chris Wong, who's the VP of Strategy and Product Development for the global consumer industry at IBM. Chris, great to have you here.
Hey, great. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
How are you enjoying the conference so far?
It's a great conference. Very busy. A lot of activity. It's a lot of dynamics. It's great.
Absolutely. So just to kick things off, because they already know where we're going with this discussion, we want to hit on Gen Z. Let's kind of pull the layers of the onion back a little bit further just to see what's going on with this generation. What are some of the findings? We know you recently published a study, and one of the largest studies of its kind for Gen Z. What can you tell us about that study?
Yeah, it's a study, a global study that IBM and National Retail Federation, we did it together, and we surveyed 15,600 Gen Zs in 16 countries. So it was a really great global study. One of the things, I think there's no pure definition of Generation Z. So some people say Generation Z are those born after 1995. Our study really focused on those ages 13 to 21, those that we think are really consumers or will be consumers. Although one of the interesting things we learned in the study was that they really are a big influence on the household spend. I think our study showed that 93% of them actually influence purchases made for the family. So, a very influential generation.
Very interesting. And what was the biggest differentiator between perhaps the millennial generation and Gen Z?
Yeah, the way I describe it is, this is a generation that is really born online, that is really connected, and I think of them as using, they don't think of their mobile phone or the internet or the web or any of that as a thing. Yeah. It is really their neural network. It's the fabric of the way they think and operate, and it's just an immediate extension. And
they were all born with a front-facing camera, right?
Exactly. 87% of them have high-speed internet in the home around the world, so it's a very high percentage that's connected. And whereas we may think of, or in a millennial would think of as, I start and stop an activity online, it is continuous. They will put a phone there, and whether they're talking to their friends or not talking to their friends, it doesn't matter. It's on, and they're connected, and when they're ready to talk, they'll talk. And when they're ready and they need something, whether it's for shopping, whether it's for researching, whether it's schoolwork, whether it's social, whether it's entertainment, they're online. Yeah. And one thing we did kind of learn that I thought was pretty interesting also is they don't watch TV.
Really?
Yeah.
At all?
Only 44% of them in our study.
And how does that differ from the millennials?
It was all the rage when I was growing up.
Yeah, everybody, I don't have the statistics to compare to millennials and their viewing habits, but, just the fact that 44% of them said that they watch TV and during leisure times, that says, a 66% of them are not. Right. Right? They are... But they are online, and they are using their connections to they're watching videos or doing things. But so if you want to reach out to this generation, it's you have to be creative with the channels you work with.
Well, it's a credit to Facebook and YouTube and all of the social apps that have kind of occupied so much more of their time, I think.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have time to watch TV and all of the video content is already there.
Yeah.
With you everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go.
And it's a sense of empowerment, right? It's not like I need to wait for something I want to watch. when I want to watch it, I'll watch it now. When I need to stop, I'll stop. I'll keep going. So this is this is a generation that's used to really being in control, right, of what they want to do, when they want to do it, and and their online activities.
But that same habit is carried over even when you are watching TV, because you're not necessarily watching it while it's live. You're not saying, hey, it's 7 p.m. I've got to make sure I'm going to sit in front of, Scream Queens or something like that. You're saying, all right, cool, it's like 8 o'clock. I can watch that on demand afterwards and fast forward through all the commercials if I really want to.
Exactly.
So that whole experience is changing how advertisers now have to manipulate different programming to make sure that they're still getting their message across.
And the brands, right? I mean, what are the right ways for the brands to get their message across, in this digital medium, right?
Yeah, how do you make sure your ad doesn't get skipped? I mean,
exactly.
Gen Z loves to skip an ad. How do you actually make an ad they don't want to skip?
Right, exactly. And you've got probably, the other thing our conclusion out of this study is this is not a very patient generation.
No.
It's not very tolerant of whether things don't work. I mean, that came out a lot. Like, I think 66% of them said, listen, if this experience, it's too complex, I have trouble with it, I'm out.
Right.
And
so if you're a retailer not already focused on Gen Z, are you in a losing position, or can you still play catch up?
I think it, first of all, I think it really depends on the retailer, their brand, what their focus and strategy. It's not one-dimensional. Everything from merchandising strategy to communications, right? What I would say is that we also talked to a lot of brands as part of this study. We interviewed the Gen Zs of 15,600. We also talked to a number of companies. And I think our general conclusion is that brands aren't ready. They're not quite yet ready for this generation. They're doing a lot of things. And I'll give the example. I mean, I always think it's almost like an arms race with this generation. This generation is so cyber savvy. I mean, they're really good at knowing how to work the technology, their online personas. I think with the millennial generation, there's a lot of discussion by parents like, you need to be careful what you put online. You need to, curate your persona. Don't put anything on Facebook if you don't want anyone to see it, right? This generation, they got that.
Yeah.
They know that. That's why Snapchat is so popular, right? I mean, the things they share is actually quite frightening sometimes, but at the same time, they know,
they're guarded of their digital reputations.
Yeah.
And they're so savvy. They, many of them have alternate online personas. They know, so if you're a brand thinking, okay, I'm building this relationship, I'm gathering data, I think I understand, their preferences and behaviors. And you find out it's actually somebody completely different than you think you've been, engaging with. I mean, they know that. It's almost like I viewed it almost like a sport. It's like an arms race, right? They know what the brands are trying to do. They're trying to outfox the brands. They think it's kind of fun, right? They're going to, provide, different personas, different data. And so one of the things that we're kind of talking through with the brands right now is how do you really get to know this generation? And one of the things that we really kind of dig into is really about you can't just be transactional with them.
Yeah.
You can't just hope that I can, capture their purchase behavior and then I'm going to know what they like and then I'm going to try to, promote things to them, right? This is really now about being creative and being part of their lifestyle. Right. So talking with some brands, for example, we know that a majority of them still like to go to the store. They still shop in a store. They're certainly online. They're doing things on the web, but they still value that store experience. How does that store associate become part of their social fabric? Right? How do you become part of their lifestyle when you engage with them? We had yesterday we were on stage with Helzberg Diamonds, and Helzberg Diamonds not exactly targeting Gen Z, more millennial right now, but what they're realizing is that if they can work and co-create with that individual, then they're learning a lot about their preferences and what they want, and they're willing to give that because you're helping them do something. Right, and so they become part of the fabric of that generation.
And we saw a lot of that start up, with the millennial generation too, when a lot of brands were running social contests, different social contests to make sure that they had that connection point. And for me, the one that suckered me into it was GQs. When they were having that "How GQ are you" type of competition and contest, I was like, oh yeah, this seems awesome. I think I can get into this. And you see how many other people are getting engaged from all across the world, and it just goes to show how much they were able to drive a conversation back eventually towards one landing page that could eventually branch out to several different product offerings that other advertisers wanted to take because they saw the traction of the campaign. They wanted to take part in it.
That's perfect. I mean, one of the things the study did show is that they want to participate.
Right.
They want to co-create. They want to be part of the content. They want to be part of whether it's games, whether it's contests, whether it's actual product.
Right.
Co-creation. Simple things like participating in reviews was extraordinarily high. Right. So they're definitely if they want to participate, they do participate and they do it very quickly as long as it's easy for them to do so. Yeah. Right. But it's a generation that loves to be part of the brand, and I think that's to answer your earlier question, is it too late for the brands? No, I don't think so. I think it's a question of how do you change your engagement strategy so that you can actually make them a part of it versus at them. Right.
So what are some key things that brands can do to grow their affinity with Gen Z now?
First and foremost, some very so what we call the fundamentals are still there. Fundamentals meaning, first of all, every experience has to be simple. It has to be, the data really shows the high abandonment rate, the low switching costs for this generation.
They're not waiting for the website to load.
They're not going to wait for that, right? The fundamentals of making sure that technology is a great way to engage with them because they are online, but it better work. The other thing we heard from them is speed, right? So the speed of how you engage with them. Complex is not good, as my little living laboratory said. We're lazy. We don't want to, figure this out. So make it easy. But speed, like an example we use is customer support. Right. Customer support today with this generation is not going to be call somebody, put them on hold and wait, and then someone will serve them. That's just not going to work, right? Social media, using social media tools as a way to respond quickly, whether it's Twitter or Snapchat or Facebook. Be sure that you're on top of that because that's how they want to communicate. If they're not happy, that's how they're going to communicate, and very quickly their whole cohort will know they're not happy.
And then they could lose affinity for that brand.
Right away.
So it's like if you're one of the mobile networks and you're not responding to Twitter complaints about something wrong with their phone, you can really quickly lose some
you better
big
be on
points.
that. And when we say speed, we're not like tomorrow. We're like, when you hear they're not happy, like within minutes, you've got to say, hey, I'm Chris, I'm from XYZ company, and tell me more about what's the issue.
Right. Absolutely. Well, this is amazing insight to take forward. I hope some brands are listening because they need to figure out.
You got to get on Gen Z.
Exactly, right?
Are you ready?
Are you ready? That's what we should have named this conversation. Yeah. Are you ready for Gen Z? That would have been awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, Chris. It was very valuable, garnering some of your insights. And for everybody that has not already seen the study, how can they go check it out?
Come to our IBM website. I think we'll have a link, and I think NRF as well.
Perfect.
So we have a link on. And actually, the study's in 3 phases. So the first phase of the study will be who is this generation, and that's released here at NRF this week. We've got an upcoming study that's going to be about their brand loyalty and what does that actually mean, because I think it has some new nuances on what their engagement with the brand is. And then the third one will be about how they shop and where they shop. And so those 3 studies will be released through the year.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Well, certainly look forward to those coming out. Thanks again for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris.
Have a great show.
All the listeners, stay tuned. You're listening to the Nasdaq Behind the Bell podcast live from the NRF Innovation Lab at the NRF Big Show 2017. Stay tuned for more.